All right, I had a great question in the comments. Um, how come if you make your own plugin changing the max value of something from the base code, it works? I would imagine it would crash the game, questioning why in two places has different numbers for its max value. And then it says, are there certain rules or situations where overwriting a number works and others where it causes issues? So, really, this is a two-part answer. First of all, how and why does overwriting work in JavaScript? Then secondly, it's more of a question of good programming practices. So how does overwriting in JavaScript work? If you didn't know, some plugins must be in a certain order for them to work. So this is because JavaScript executes code sequentially, meaning in order. The plugin manager here allows us to choose which order the plugins are loaded in. So the too much gold code runs first, then the variable window code runs second. So if you have a plugin at the top, which overwrites a method in scene menu, and then you have a plugin near the bottom, which overwrites the same method in scene menu, the plugin at the bottom is executed later, meaning the changes from the bottom plugin are the ones you will see in the game. So why does that work? Well, functions and methods are properties of objects. If we look at this class here, so I've created a blank hero class, and then I've attached a take damage function, which just says the hero is taking damage, and then I've attached a heal function, which says just heal. So these are now properties of the hero class, and we are setting this property equal to this function. So look at this basic example here of a plain old variable. We declare the variable as 5, and then we are reassigning that variable to equal 2. So what happened to the old value? Well, it's just gone. It's gone now. My value equals 2, and 5 is no longer part of the code. It's gone. So if we think of it like that, the same thing is happening with the properties here. So yeah, so as an example, what happens if we do the same with a property? I will create a take damage function, and all it does is says console log overwritten. So I guess I should take this out first of all and run the code just to see. So it should say we create a new hero, we do take damage, so it will say hero is taking damage, and we'll do heal, which means heal. So let's talk to this person. Hero is taking damage, and then heal. So then I'll pop this piece of code back in. So we're not doing anything fancy here. We're just copying the same property name, setting it equal to a different function. So now when we run the code, it says overwritten and heal instead of has taken damage. So this is kind of just the same thing we saw with the value here. The property has been reassigned a different value. So take damage is now equal to this, and this function is just gone. So that explains sort of how it works. But the second part of the question about why it doesn't throw errors and about having the max value in two different places, I've set up this. This is a pretty bad example of it. Well, this is a bad example of adding party members and alerting some name on the screen. So we wouldn't do it like this, but um, it still simulates the problem I want to describe really. So we'll look at this example code. We have a party array. We have a function which we attempt to add a party member to the party, but we only do this if the party length is less than 4. So if the size of the party is less than 4, we'll add a party member. And the reason you do this is because you don't want to have infinite number of party members. You only want 4. You only want 4 maximum, because this will, once the party hits the size of 4, it will no longer let you add any more. So essentially, this number here is the max party size. And then below, this is just a function that will loop through the party members and will alert their name. So we've seen, hopefully the code, you remember this from previous videos, but alert we've used before. This just prints something out on the screen in a box. And then we use the index, to look inside the party array and then get the name, although underscore name I think is how they do it in RPG Maker. So if you add party members and then you run this, it will print out the different party member names. But here we have loop round from while I is less than 5. So here we're kind of using 5 as the maximum party size. And we would call this magic numbers. And it sounds like a good thing, but it's not. Magic numbers are it's a name given to numbers that are just dotted around in the code with no context, no idea of what it does. You can't really tell just at a glance what these numbers are for, what they do. Really, really bad. You don't want this in your code. So how we would get around this sort of thing, we would probably create a variable. We would say max party size, and you will set that equal to the number. So now we would use the variable name instead of the number, and now when you read it, it makes so much more sense. It's a lot more obvious what the code does. If the party.length is less than max party size, push the actor into the array. Okay, so if we do that in both places, right, you probably noticed one of the problems already, but we put that in there instead. And now, yeah, you loop through the party size and then print out the names. So the problem here is we only ever have 4 party members at one time. And that's what we have here. But in this function, the max party size is 5, which is obviously different. So we loop around 5 times, and when it gets to party member 5, it will break the game because you can only ever have 4. Now, keep in mind in JavaScript, I think this would just say undefined and wouldn't actually break the game. You'd get some funky, you just get something weird happening that you don't want to happen, but that's besides the point. So, if you have it written out like this, you can see, oh, okay, this should be 4. And now it's the same, and now you won't get the errors, etc., etc. But then the whole point is, why would you want this in 2 places? Surely you only want one single source of truth, which means you would take this out of here, and then both places would just use the same value. So now the code is uniform, uses the same value, and we shouldn't get the errors about not having enough party members, etc. So yeah, now and I guess instead of having it inside just a value, you could have function max party size, and all this does is returns 4. So now you can use the function instead of the value, and it works pretty much the same way. So yeah, the good thing now is if we decide to update this at a later time and say now you can have 5, we don't need to change these. We won't be forgetting to update the value anywhere because it's all pulling from the same one source. And that's the second part of the question about if you have a max value declared in multiple places, yeah, you can have some dodgy behavior that you don't expect. And so you always want to only pull from one source. If you have a maximum party size, only declare it in one place and then use that same value everywhere else. But the reason why this ties back into the first part of the example is, well, we really aren't declaring a max value in 2 different places. We declare the function in one place and we are overwriting it in another. So the original just doesn't exist anymore. So just to really hammer it home, if this was max damage, like what is the absolute most max damage that someone can do, we will return 999. Later on, if we say, okay, let's say max damage, and we return 9,999, this property used to be equal to this function. But now this property is equal to this function and this one is gone. So it is still only one single source of truth. So that's why you are right to call out that you don't want maximum values being declared in multiple places. You just want it one time and then to reuse that everywhere else. And the reason why overwriting works is because the code is executed sequentially. So this will run first, then this will run after, and will reassign this property to this function instead of this one. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that's clarified a few things. Thanks for watching.